I started painting as a hobby. Someone told me I should watch out for bleeding while stenciling. Figures I would pick a highly dangerous art form. At least I don't have to buy any red paint. That's when I decided to switch over to sculpting tofu, Linda. Donna, I always did woodworking. Put my artwork in a local gallery. The shop owner asked me to write an artistic statement. An artistic statement? It's pretty? Well, he didn't like that. Maybe something more metaphysical or spiritual. The bubble gum anticipates the shoe. No, he didn't like that either. Wasn't profound enough? How about, this expresses the feeling of the eclair as it's getting eaten? No? Well, maybe a more truthful artistic statement. This is all bullcrap and I'm just trying to snow you. Now buy my artwork. Past a craft store that said they could paint a mermaid to look like anyone I know. I told them I want one that looks like the Raiders' Max Crosby. They charged me extra for that one. Uno. Donna, I went to a wine and painting party. I'd rather do painting with Twister. Right foot yellow. No, I really mean it. Got a foot in my yellow paint. Right foot really yellow. But then I thought, I wonder what Miro's kindergarten teacher thought of his art. Hi, I'm Dr. R for Dr. R Comedy, and today we have a very special interview with Chris Maslow and Nikki Nicole, and we're going to be talking about how art helps with healing and helps with grief and with loss. So I just want to say hello to Chris and to Nikki.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for allowing us to be here. And I should mention that we're in their studio here in Melbourne, Florida. And this is a painting that Chris did a while back. And so you're getting the whole milieu of how wonderful these two artists are. And so thank you very much for allowing us to be here today.
Yeah, grateful to be here.
So today we're going to talk about how art heals and how it helps us through grief and through coping with loss at any age. Some of you know I worked in healthcare for 36 years with people with hospice and with terminal illness, as well as who were severely disabled. We were talking earlier about how art heals, and I was thinking about a personal experience I had when I came back from my uncle's funeral, and I immediately started painting. And I went outside and painted part of my garage, the outside of my garage. And I did that for hours, and it made me feel so much better. And I still have that painting on my garage. And every time in memory of my uncle, who I was very close to, and who inspired me to become a physician.
That's wonderful.
And I was thinking about how art has this ability to release a lot of emotions. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that
Certainly.
today.
Yeah. You know, art is a very therapeutic thing because it's essentially an act of meditation, and it's a gateway to meditation that's easier than maybe breath work or deep concentration. It essentially just turns off the mind and goes with the movement of the hands, and it could be any form of art. It could certainly be music. It could be sculpting, it could be woodworking, it could even be just simply painting a house.
Writing.
Yeah, writing, all these aspects. So I know that we all have our own experience with that. Do you have anything to add on art making?
I painted a huge portrait of my father, who I lost this month 3 years ago. And that was, my way of also processing the loss of my father.
Yeah, so with art for healing and understanding and coping with grief, as a technique, more or less, It's what we practice, and also I suppose we preach now as well.
Yeah, it's just it's another outlet. It's another outlet.
You've known each other a long time.
Yeah, we've been together for 11 years.
11 years. You have a son.
Yep, 8 years old.
And we were going to talk about that a little bit later, but I wanted to bring up, last year I saw a wonderful article in Florida Today that was actually titled, "In the Stillness There is Healing," about your work, and about your work not just as an artist and this new studio that you have, but also your work, the two of you, in hospice with children.
Yes.
So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that and how that started.
Absolutely. You know, in my work as a public artist, I feel like I have an obligation to the community to give back any way that I can. So a lot of different nonprofits and different organizations will reach out to me, and I'm obliged to work with them. However, when Bright Star from Health First reached out to me and requested that I did some work with, you know, their bereavement center and these grieving children, you know, I had to kind of take a step back and think about whether or not that was something that I wanted to actively pursue. So once I did, you know, go ahead and agree to try it out, it was very difficult to work with these people going through such heavy traumatic things at first. I hadn't experienced that level of loss in my own life at that time. And I remember, you know, speaking with Nikki about it and saying, is this something that we want to do further? We want to continue doing.
And I love it.
She loves it.
And I love it. I love working with children and being with my son and active in those organizations. And now he also does grief therapy
within
in their
these
program.
organizations now.
But when you first started, all three of you were involved in it, or both of you?
No, it was just
No, it was
Nikki and
just
I.
him and I doing
Yeah.
classes.
And I remember, Chris, you had said something to me when we talked previously, that at first you weren't even sure you wanted to continue it because you didn't have the personal experience. And it's really hard. I have to tell you, hospice work, terminal illness, working with severely disabled people is very emotionally draining. And so at the same time, you're an artist and you can be restored from your art. When you're working with others, it's hard. You have to build a little bit of a wall, or you have to take a step back, but you want to help other people. You have this drive to help.
Yeah, I told my mother at the time, I said, you know, I'm not sure if I want to continue this. I'm really weighing it all out there. And I ultimately went back and I told her, you know, if this is what I'm called to do, I've been called upon to do this, then I'm going to follow it through. So we continued to do this work, and we worked for about a year with them, doing several different events and workshops. And shortly thereafter, Nikki's father passed away. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then a couple of years later, my mother passed away. And now we find ourselves on the other side of the coin, where we're actually utilizing this program in our own lives, and also in our 8-year-old son's life. And
He loves it. He loves being part of that.
you know, I feel like we made the right decision to carry on and carry it out. Had we foreseen what was coming, you know, who knows which direction we would have gone.
So we do art classes, like we'll host and guide the art classes with them. But now, like our son and I, we do the art projects together. So when I go there, so and since we have 2 losses, I do the one of my dad, of his Papa Nick, and then he does Grandma Carol. So we honor them both in the same way of.
So you're teaching or you're guiding people, but at the same time you're participating at this point.
Yeah, now.
And it's changed totally differently. So when you started, what were you doing specifically with the children? You were working only with children, right?
Yeah,
you don't work with adults.
No, their program, much like Nikki participates, they've got programs with adults as well, but it was specifically children at first, which made it especially tender for me, seeing a young boy that lost his father.
Oh, yeah.
And being in that scenario. But yeah,
The
guided.
mother instinct of me, though, I dive right in. Like, it's right up my. So that's how we end up balancing out as like a team working in this.
Yeah,
Also.
she has a little bit more patience and that motherly guiding light. Where
I do a lot of the talking in the classes.
Yeah, and I'm more
And he's
busy,
like the structured part, and tells them, like what we need to order and all the things, and I like to just show up and I love it. I just love being around.
So you get to make your own project with these children. You'll have a certain number of children who come in. They're all associated with the hospice.
Yes.
They've all had someone close to them who's passed or is in the process. And then you come up with a project. And how do you decide what project you want to do and then carry through?
We work collaboratively.
I was going to say we collaborate with them because it's
yeah.
just one portion of like their camp. What they have like every year, and then they have
monthly.
or their monthly, and sometimes they have ideas. We were doing a lot of painting, like directly painting projects, but now we've been called upon to do different other crafts and
Yeah, we it's changing the mediums up a bit.
mediums, but we are
really,
totally up for it, yeah.
It's we make it as simplified as possible. It's one project for everyone. They all participate in the same thing individually. They're provided with the supplies, and we can typically knock it out in a pretty rapid period, 30 minutes, sometimes longer. But yeah, I mean, essentially, that's what it is. It's just we give them a task.
Yeah, but it's being with them because we're with the kids in that time,
How do they respond? I mean, can you give me some examples of
Their kids are so sweet. They're just like the best thing ever. And some are, like,
are
I've
emotional.
had to face, you have to be able to hear other people's loss and their stories and be able to hold space for them, all while moving through things with them, even though, we're like there to, we're doing our part.
Yeah. Sometimes they don't want to leave.
That's nice.
And really, the goal is and has always been just to promote the arts in a positive light and share that gift with the world to anyone at any age. But yeah, so when we see them not wanting to tidy up at the end of the program and want to continue their work,
love it.
or they go home and continue it, then we know that we've succeeded in our goal.
That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. That shows you a very active kind of healing, that they're being able to be taken to a better place than maybe they came in.
Certainly.
Which is amazing to me. I have been following the two of you on Facebook since before your child was born. You're both wonderful artists. You both do large-scale art, is that correct? So maybe let's just take a couple of minutes just to talk about your own personal experience with art, and then we can talk about more about how other people can come into. I'm sure there are people who are watching right now who may not ever have done very much art outside of maybe school a long time ago.
Oh, I would say just go to Michael's, go to the art store, Amazon, get yourself material, a bunch of material just to play, even if you're an adult. Just so, paint markers, colored pencils, crayons, they have adult coloring books. I used to do all that kind of stuff, and then I found a mastery program, so I pursued art for real, but I was just playing around in our home with art, and really with being with him for so long, he kind of led us down the art path of like a family, and the art family, because we used to often take our son everywhere with us as a baby to events that he was doing. And then I just found that I was creating so much when our son was a baby, like from being in the home, because I was a stay-at-home mom. And I just wanted to really know how to draw and really how to learn and up my skills. So I'd taken a couple classes at the Foosner and started out with watercolors. Also, that's another really good medium that's fun that people can play around with. Very therapeutic. It's a nice. It can be a really peaceful medium.
You know, my introduction to art making was at a very young age. My father was an architect and home builder, so I grew up around drafting tables and drawings. And you know, my folks always nurtured and cultivated that interest. And as I went through, you know, elementary school, art was present every day and in almost every activity. You know, learning was disguised through the arts. And of course, you know, once you enter middle school, past the 6th grade, the arts almost are completely canceled out of that.
That's true.
It's all academic based. And, you know, I often wondered why do things stop there, but I could see that it's a form of control that's necessary for people to learn in this academic space, but it's the creativity is really what fosters that interest in the youth. So for that to stop, you know, is really disheartening, and I feel like it holds a lot of people back because, you know, the focus can't purely be on intellect. You know,
And he's been a voice for that, which is really nice. He's been a voice for that throughout the schools, doing mural projects that we've done, just to kind of show them the importance
of creativity.
of that and being around
yeah.
the kids seeing the art.
Myself as an academician, you know, I was a University of Central Florida medical school professor, volunteer for 10 years, but so I consider myself kind of an academic, despite the fact that I was also in private practice for many years. But I absolutely agree with you 100%. And I was an artist as I was young, and then I put that aside for my academic career because, yes, you're right, creativity is kind of frowned upon. You can't do both. At least that's the old school thinking. But then when I retired, I kept saying, when I retire, I'm going to paint. When I'm retired, and I went to a woodwork shop at the senior center, believe it or not, and took up woodworking and painting that way. But I actually agree with you. Creativity is instrumental in academic sciences and mathematics. And when we try to suppress creativity at a young age, we're doing a disservice to our society.
Absolutely. So that being said, you know, I never stopped creating and making art, even when I failed my 7th grade art class, you know, for not following the instructions to the T.
Did you not color in the lines?
No, never been one to color in the lines.
And you failed art. See, to me, I haven't heard that story before. I love that story because here you are, a successful artist. You've made a career of it.
Certainly.
And you're probably the best known artist in our area, a regionally well-known artist. Your murals are everywhere. You do a lot of traveling. You, as we were talking about, you now are exhibiting a piece in a well-respected museum. You have that kind of credentials, and yet you failed 7th grade art class. That gives me hope for everyone, to be honest, because I love those stories about being told. I was told in high school I'll never amount to anything in life, and from my math science teacher.
One bad teacher can really change,
we shouldn't
everything.
be disheartened when someone in authority tells us something. You don't know why people do that.
Yeah.
Why would people
Maybe
do that?
it's, you know,
Dream takers.
self-projection or something, but
Their own lack.
Dream takers. That's
Dream
a really
takers.
good phrase.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be dream takers.
No, absolutely not.
So at any age, we can become creative, and we can use it for emotional reasons as well as physical reasons or intellectual reasons. I really was fascinated with what you said early on, Chris, about how it's a form of meditation for you. Because flow, that word that sometimes gets used in the psychology literature to talk about when people get so immersed in a topic or a subject or a skill that they lose track of time, essentially.
Yeah.
Flow is, for artists, is one of the most important things. It is meditative art. And I think the form of art you choose should be indicated by the fact that you feel the flow. You feel that you can get lost in it.
And that's why I say play with different materials, because I'll hear a lot of like, oh, I can't even draw a straight line. Oh, nope, I never was the creative one. It's really, those are just stories that they've either told themselves, that someone's told them, that, this one thing or another that someone's told us in childhood that you just never forget, just like right now that that shows that, you never forgot that, know? So,
Yeah.
And it's really like art isn't just to be expressive and to use it in the manner that we're speaking of. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to be, art is just for anyone. It's just an expressive, anyone could do it. My work is, I have a lot of abstract work, unperfect stuff. I'm trying to I don't, even be even more messy. That's it, my style.
I like messy. I like messy. I do most of my art in my garage because I'm extremely messy. But messy is fun. So the emotions, when you're dealing with grief and you're dealing with loss of some type, now you talked about you like to paint an image of the person who you lost.
I do. Well, I almost died in the hospital. I told you about that. And as soon as I got out, I painted a huge illustration of Jesus. That was just something that personal. I was at the Advent Health. They're strong in that, where they have the, the spiritual aspect. And I do paint a lot of portraits. They're challenging for me, but I continue to paint them. But I painted my father, and I remember telling myself specifically, like, it's coming up on the 1 year anniversary, and something about that, like 1 year, that first year of them being gone. I wanted to do it before I just like put it on the back burner like a lot of other paintings do. They're halfway or something. All artists have that stash of, and I wanted to, and I knew it was like part of my healing, but even if you can't really pinpoint it, you just do what's on your heart. And I wanted to honor my dad that way. And it came out really exceptional. And I surprised myself when I look at it. I'm like, wow, I painted that. It's like he came to life,
We do these other workshops, where it may not be a painting of someone, but maybe their lost one, but maybe a photograph of them is included in the piece of art, or maybe the name is commemorated in the piece of art. So just using art making to honor them, is a great hurdle to get over, I think, with grief and grieving. It's like an introductory kind of way to start moving forward.
You just reminded me, and one of my friends, she herself is an artist, and she's very close to her dogs, and one of her dogs passed, and she was just brokenhearted. And I went ahead and painted a painting and included the photograph of her dog in the painting, and she kept it on her porch outside for years. Every day she would walk past it, and it was so important to her, and it still is. And it's kind of funny. I hadn't even really thought about that until you triggered it, but I couldn't paint the dog at that time, but I felt like if I included the photograph in the actual work of art, and she really appreciated that.
That's really nice.
They become these mementos that act as altars, or keepsakes that we hold dear for our loved ones in these objects or these works of art.
But they don't always have to be a symbol. It doesn't have to be a portrait, or, it doesn't always have, because I don't want people to think that they
have to.
It has to be like a certain thing for them to. It doesn't. Just in general, I think with grief and release, it's just releasing all the inner stuff, putting it onto paper, putting it into a poem.
Whether it's writing,
putting it into I mean, I still use a karaoke machine. I'm not a singer, but I do that, and sometimes that's just a way for me to express and get the body moving. It's just stored stuff inside that you just there's so many outlets and ways to do that.
And so you could do it through art, or as I talk about in my videos that are associated with this interview, it can be dance, it can be, for me it's writing now. I do a lot of writing as well as art, obviously do comedy writing. And we're not going to talk too much about how comedy can help with grief, but it really can. I mean, in my work with hospice, you don't laugh at the patients, but you laugh with the patients, and sometimes they really appreciate that. So,
Just a lightheartedness.
Find what works for you, find what works for your soul, for your heart, and moves you, and allows you to bring that flow and that peace. And if you can find that peace, then you've won. Do you have any last thoughts? Anything you'd like to say that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I think that to touch again on art making is for all people. It's for everyone, whatever
Absolutely.
form of art making it is that you are drawn towards. And don't wait.
Yeah, buy some supplies, just try
get
it,
into
just
it.
dive in, just do something new for yourself.
Do something new. Take an art class, explore that.
Do something different that you've never tried.
And then, see how it affects you. Some people, maybe it may not be for them, but I think especially for someone who's going through grief, it's well worth a try.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This is very important to me, and I hope it'll be very important to our audience. Thank you very much to Chris Maslow and Nikki Nicole.
Thank you.
For allowing us into their studio today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I watched a guy engrave some granite, freehand. I asked him, if you make a mistake engraving a headstone, do you turn it over and shake it? Like an Etch-a-Sketch, only you call it Etch-a-Slab. When I'm not sculpting tofu, I developed the high art of belly button lint upcycling. I crocheted an actual dust bunny just in time for Easter. Even by your standards, that's really weird. But I could be weird too. Last night I ate at a restaurant that advertises they have artisanal pizza. I told them, well, paint my pepperoni. You might think sculpting tofu is weird, Linda, but I was in a juried art show. They found me guilty.